You know that feeling when you walk out to your driveway and your stomach just drops. There it is, again, that same crack, wider than last year, maybe with a new one running right next to it. You filled it, you were careful about it, you spent real money on it, and it came back anyway. That is not bad luck. That is not your fault. That is exactly what they designed it to do. Every single year, American homeowners spend somewhere between $3 and $5 billion on concrete repair products. Caulk, epoxy, polymer fillers, hydraulic cement. Walk into any hardware store and you will see 15 feet of shelf space dedicated entirely to fixing the same problem over and over again. And every single year, those same homeowners are back at those same shelves, buying the same products. Because the crack came back. It always comes back. There's a reason for that. And once you understand it, once you really understand it, you will never look at a tube of crack filler the same way again. You call a professional. He shows up. He looks at your garage floor with that practiced confidence of someone who has seen 1,000 driveways. He gives you the number, $400 minimum, epoxy injection, sometimes more. He explains it like he is doing you a favor. The epoxy bonds to both sides of the crack, stronger than the concrete itself. He has done hundreds of these jobs. What he never tells you, what the entire industry quietly avoids telling you, is that epoxy fills a crack. It does not fix what caused the crack. And what caused that crack is still happening every single day inside your slab, invisible to the naked eye. Concrete is not stone. It is not static. It breathes. It expands in summer heat, contracts in winter cold, absorbs water, releases water. The freeze-thaw cycle alone, water seeping into microscopic pores, freezing, expanding 9% in volume, then thawing, creates internal pressure that can exceed 30,000 pounds per square inch. Your epoxy plug is a rigid foreign object sitting inside a material that never stops moving. After 2 winters, sometimes 3 if you're lucky, the concrete shifts just enough. The bond breaks, the crack comes back. You call the contractor, he quotes $400 again, and the cycle continues forever, by design. Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, a farming community that has been maintaining barns, silos, fences, and concrete floors across generations, without ever once calling a contractor. There's a man there I will call Amos, third-generation dairy farmer, hands that look like they were built for work. His grandfather poured the concrete floor of the main dairy barn in 1953. That floor is still in use today, every single day, under the weight of hundreds of dairy cows, heavy equipment, and 71 Lancaster County winters. I want you to think about that number. 71 years. No major cracks. No resurfacing, no contractor, no replacement. When I asked Amos how, he did not mention epoxy. He did not mention sealers. He did not mention calling anyone. He talked about feeding the concrete. My grandfather said concrete gets hungry, Amos told me. When it gets dry and hungry, it cracks. You do not patch a crack. You feed the whole floor. Then the cracks close themselves. His mixture costs $1 to make. He applies it with a $12 garden sprayer, the kind you use for watering plants. Once a year, every spring. That is it. He has never hired a concrete contractor in his life. Every product on that hardware store shelf operates on the same philosophy. Find the crack. Fill the crack. The crack is the problem. But Amos, and his grandfather before him, understood something the industry will never put on a label. The crack is not the problem. The crack is only a symptom. The real problem happens deep inside the concrete long before any crack ever becomes visible. As concrete ages, it loses the internal moisture and mineral compounds that give it flexibility and strength. It becomes brittle, thirsty. And brittle, thirsty concrete cracks, not because of any single freeze or any single storm, but because it no longer has the internal resources to handle normal daily stress. Filling a crack in depleted concrete is like putting a bandage on a wound that is still bleeding from the inside. What Amos calls feeding is, in scientific language, rehydration and mineral replenishment, restoring to the concrete what decades of weather have slowly stripped away. And when you do that, something remarkable happens. Existing hairline cracks begin closing on their own, through a process the concrete industry has known about for nearly 100 years and has had every financial reason to never mention. Researchers documented something they called autogenous healing, the ability of concrete, under the right conditions with the right mineral saturation, to repair its own cracks. The study was not hidden, it was published. It was available to anyone who wanted to read it. And then, quietly, it was simply never taught. Not in contractor training programs, not in product literature, not in any glossy brochure any epoxy company ever mailed to any homeowner. Because if concrete can feed itself and seal itself, what exactly are you paying $400 for? That is the question Amos never had to ask. His grandfather learned from the land, not from an industry that profits every time your driveway breaks. Not slightly wrong, fundamentally wrong. And the mistake starts with the most basic assumption that concrete is a stone. It is not. Stone is finished. Stone is static. Stone was formed millions of years ago and has been slowly degrading ever since. When stone cracks, it has nothing left to give. It cannot participate in its own repair. Concrete is something else entirely. Concrete is a chemical reaction that never fully finishes. When Portland cement is mixed with water, it begins a process called hydration, a cascading series of chemical reactions that bind sand and gravel together into what we recognize as a hard gray slab. But here is what no contractor ever tells you. Here is what no product manufacturer has any interest in advertising. That hydration process stops at roughly 60% completion. The other 40%, billions of microscopic calcium-rich particles distributed throughout every slab, every driveway, every barn floor in this country, never fully reacted. They are still there right now, locked inside the hardened matrix, chemically intact, still waiting. Amos's grandfather had a name for them. He called them the concrete's hunger. In laboratory catalogs, it is listed as sodium silicate. But for most of the 19th and early 20th centuries, ordinary people knew it by a simpler name, water glass. Farmers used it to preserve eggs through winter, coating the shells to seal out bacteria and seal in freshness. Soap makers used it as a binder. Textile mills used it for fireproofing, an unremarkable, inexpensive industrial liquid, a workhorse compound with no glamour attached to it whatsoever. Nobody in those early years was thinking about concrete. Then, a working chemist named Louis Henry Kramer changed everything, and history forgot him almost completely. He was not a professor. He had no Wikipedia page. He was the kind of careful, obsessive, unglamorous scientist who records observations that nobody reads until decades later, if ever. The notebooks that survive, held in a small Ohio archive, largely uncatalogued, describe experiments that began with an accident. Kramer had applied a diluted sodium silicate solution to a cracked concrete test slab. He expected it to act as a surface sealant. What he saw instead stopped him cold. Over the following weeks, the hairline cracks in that slab began to close. Not from the outside in, the way a filler closes a crack, from the inside out. New crystalline material was forming within the crack itself. Material that was chemically identical to the binding compound holding the surrounding concrete together. Kramer wrote in his notebook, in careful, unhurried handwriting, "The silica treatment does not repair the stone. It teaches the stone to repair itself." He spent the next decade trying to understand exactly why. When a diluted sodium silicate solution is applied to aged concrete, it is thin enough to penetrate deep into the pore structure, drawn inward by capillary action, the same force that pulls water up through a paper towel. As it travels deeper, it contacts those dormant, unhydrated cement particles that have been sitting inactive for years, sometimes decades. The silicate ions react with the calcium compounds in those particles. They trigger a secondary hydration reaction that should have happened when the concrete was first poured, but never got the chance. The product of that reaction is calcium silicate hydrate, the single most important binding compound in all of concrete chemistry, the glue within the stone. When calcium silicate hydrate forms inside an existing crack, it does not merely fill the space. It grows into the crack walls, it bonds to both sides, it integrates itself into the surrounding matrix. The crack does not get patched. It gets converted, from the inside, into new stone. This is feeding the concrete. You are giving it the one compound it needs to finish a process it started decades ago and never completed. Medieval German masons treated stone foundations with mineral washes before laying subsequent courses. The consistent ingredient across many of these treatments, as later analysis of surviving structures confirmed, was silica-rich mineral water drawn from specific springs local builders had known about for generations. The foundations of castle structures in the Rhine Valley, structures that have survived 7 centuries of European winters, wars, and settling, show measurable evidence of this treatment. The stone is harder at depth than at the surface. Something was introduced into those foundations that kept working long after the masons were gone. By 1921, the United States Department of Agriculture had published this knowledge in plain language, circular number 107, written for farmers, designed to be used by anyone willing to mix a simple solution and spray it on a barn floor. It was read, it was used, and then it was quietly dropped from every subsequent publication as the commercial concrete repair industry began organizing itself around a very different business model. Proper repair meant buying products, not mixing a $1 solution in a garden sprayer. A 1952 study measured surface hardness and compressive strength of concrete samples before and after sodium silicate treatment. The results were not a modest improvement. Treated concrete showed hardness increases of up to 400% compared to untreated samples of the same age and mixed design. 400%, not 40, 400, with a mineral compound that costs pennies per gallon. That cannot be patented because it has been in the public domain since before the Civil War, that any homeowner can apply with a $12 piece of equipment from a garden center. Treated samples also showed significantly reduced water absorption and measurably improved freeze-thaw resistance, the two properties most directly responsible for the crack and repair cycle that cost American homeowners billions of dollars every single year. The study was published, cited a handful of times, and then the industry moved the conversation forward because it had every financial reason to keep it moving. $14 billion? That is the approximate annual value of the global concrete repair and protection products market. Crack fillers, epoxy injections, polyurethane sealants, surface coatings, bonding agents, an entire ecosystem of products built around one simple premise that you will keep needing them forever. Now ask yourself what happens to that $14 billion market the moment homeowners understand that aged concrete can repair and harden itself using a mineral compound that costs about $1 per application. Sodium silicate cannot be patented. The chemical formula has been in the public domain for over a century. No company can own it. No company can collect royalties on it. Any manufacturer who built a product line around it would immediately face unlimited competition, driving margins to zero. There is no money in telling you the truth about concrete. And so, with the entirely rational logic of self-preservation, the industry simply does not. Retired construction engineer out of the upper Midwest, in the early 1970s, he self-published a slim spiral-bound volume called The Forgotten Seal, distributed through agricultural extension networks and independent hardware dealers, written in plain language for ordinary homeowners. The book compiled decades of research, Bureau of Standards work, the 1952 hardness study, Kramer's notebooks, and 30 years of Voss's own field observation, application instructions, mixed ratios, maintenance schedules. By any honest measure, one of the most practically useful construction documents ever written for a general audience. Within a few years, it was gone. Not banned, not burned, simply out of print. Absent from every bibliography and every industry publication that was consolidating authority over what contractors learned and what homeowners were told. Voss died in 1984. His book does not exist on any online retailer. Most contractors have never heard his name. The knowledge he compiled retreated, the way old knowledge always retreats, into the hands of people who had no financial reason to forget it. Farmers, old-timers, people like Amish. You need sodium silicate solution, available online or at masonry suppliers, sold as concrete densifier or hardener. Look for 25 to 40% concentration. A clean garden pump sprayer with a fine mist nozzle. Calcium chloride ice melt pellets from any hardware store. Water, a stiff brush. Step 1. Clean the surface completely. Sweep it out. Remove every piece of loose material from existing cracks. If there are oil stains, degrease with diluted dish soap and rinse completely. Let it dry 24 hours. You want it clean but not bone dry. Slight ambient moisture actually helps. Mix 1 part sodium silicate to 4 parts water. That dilution is not casual, it is deliberate and critical. Concentrated sodium silicate seals the surface before it can penetrate. You need penetration, not sealing. Step 2, you're not flooding this surface, you're misting it. Fine, even application, visibly damp, not pooling. Work in sections of 50 square feet. Apply the mist, wait 3 to 5 minutes, apply a second light coat. You're giving the solution time to be pulled into the pore structure by capillary action. The moment it starts sitting on the surface, forming a skin, you have applied too much. Step 3. This is the part almost every guide leaves out entirely. Sodium silicate works alone, but slowly. The reaction that produces calcium silicate hydrate accelerates dramatically in the presence of calcium ions. After your silicate application has had 20 minutes to begin penetrating, dissolve 1 tablespoon of calcium chloride pellets per gallon of water. Mist this solution lightly over the same area. The calcium chloride drives the reaction faster and deeper, pulling newly forming crystals further into the crack structure rather than concentrating only at the surface. This is the difference between a treatment that lasts 1 season and one that lasts a decade. Temperature matters more than most people realize. The reaction slows dramatically below 50 degrees and essentially stops below 40. Above 85, the solution evaporates before it can penetrate. The sweet spot is 60 to 75 degrees with the concrete itself feeling cool to the touch. Early morning and late spring or early fall, that is your window. Moisture matters too. Slightly damp concrete drinks the solution far more effectively than bone-dry concrete. If conditions are dry, mist the surface lightly with plain water 30 minutes before application. A primed capillary network pulls the silicate deeper. A dry summer slab will often just let the first coat sit there doing nothing. And for concrete in genuinely poor condition, heavily cracked, visibly porous, more than 15 years old, do not do 1 heavy application. Do 3 light applications spaced 1 week apart. Then maintain annually. Amish does his barn floor every April. He has done it for 40 years. The floor his grandfather poured in 1953 still has no cracks. Somewhere in the last 50 years, a quiet transformation happened between ordinary people and the physical world they live in. We stopped being stewards. We became customers. The house, the driveway, the barn floor, these stopped being things we maintain through knowledge and skill, and became things we pay someone else to fix using products we do not understand through processes we are not supposed to comprehend. That shift was not an accident. It was profitable. An informed homeowner who understands that his concrete can be maintained for dollars a year is a terrible customer. A confused homeowner who believes cracking is inevitable and professional repair is required is an outstanding one. Amos does not think he's doing anything unusual. He's doing what his grandfather taught him, maintaining property the way people maintained property before an industry decided that maintenance was a service to be purchased rather than a skill to be inherited. The knowledge was never destroyed. It was made to feel outdated, the province of old farmers rather than modern homeowners, but the chemistry does not care about marketing. Calcium silicate hydrate forms whether you learned about it from a screen or from a man in a straw hat in Lancaster County who took pity on a contractor who had spent 30 years selling people the wrong solution. When you mix 1 part sodium silicate to 4 parts water and walk out to your cracked driveway on a cool spring morning with a $12 sprayer in your hand, you are connecting yourself to German castle builders, to American farmers, to a forgotten chemist filling notebooks alone in the 1930s, to a federal researcher who documented a truth that waited 90 years for a wider audience. You are choosing to understand rather than merely purchase. You are refusing to be a passive consumer in a $14 billion market built on the assumption that you cannot be trusted with knowledge. The concrete beneath your feet has been sitting there, 40% unfinished, holding its dormant particles like seeds that never got rain. Go feed your floor. Take back what was always yours.